All right, welcome to the basics of Squarespace tutorial. I'm going to go through all of the things that will apply to any site. And these are the things that are kind of the overview of Squarespace, but if there's anything else that isn't covered here, it will likely be covered in your custom tutorial. And of course, if you're still missing something that you need to know, feel free to reach out to us. But let's dive in. So in this example site, it's going to cover most of the things, again, that are on most Squarespace sites. So I'm just going to run through everything one by one. I'm going to come back to pages because that is where you do a lot of the bulk of the editing. Under design is where you'll find the logo and title. So the logo of the site, the title of the site. If you have a tagline, you can add it here. You don't have to. Some sites will include the tagline in the actual header area, and some sites don't. So up to you if you want to add it. The logo image again, and then the browser icon or the favicon, which is this little guy up here, is under this as well. You can also add an alternative social sharing logo. So if you're sharing it on Facebook or something like that and you want it to be different, you could add that here, but otherwise it will just pull your regular logo. Your template that we've chosen is under here. If you needed to change templates, I would not recommend that without some design advice there, because when you change templates, that changes all of your colors and fonts and everything else. So obviously this has been set up for you, so you don't need to worry about that. Site styles is kind of the same thing. Again, this is all set up based on your site. So for example, all of the paragraph text has been set, all of the colors have been set. But if you need to make a change, you can do that under here in styles. So you can see if you're doing this, there's a ton of stuff, right? So one of the little hacks that I have is you'll see that as I move my mouse around, it highlights with a blue rectangle around different blocks on the page. So if I highlight this and then I click on it, it will pull up that block of content, and we'll see I can now see that if I wanted to edit this body text, I can do that. I can change the color, I can change the links, I can click here to change the size, the font, etc. The key and most important thing about this is that if you change this, let's say you're trying to change this exact block here, if you change the size of this, it will change the size of the body text throughout the site. So it'll change it here, it will change it everywhere. So that's really important. So you're not making just a change in this one tiny paragraph, you're making it site-wide whenever you're editing styles here. Okay, but there's a ton of stuff in here, like I said, so you can find pretty much everything you're looking for. So if you're editing a certain type of image block, again, you can click on that. It will open, the image block collage, which is what this is. You can change the content width, the title color, the subtitle font, the button color, all the things. So there's a ton of stuff in here you could change. But again, it's set up for you, so you don't need to do that. But I just want to point out where that is. If you needed to do the lock screens, that would be if you have a password protected, and this is for your whole site, not just one page. You can set this up. You can put an image behind it or your logo, just so you know that's where that is. The checkout page, if you have a shop, is here. You can style this checkout page, and obviously, again, this would have been styled for you if that's the case. But if you need to make changes to that, styling this particular checkout page is under the design area. It's not under the commerce area. Okay. And then the rest of the stuff is more like high level. I set up a 404 page for everybody, so that's where this is. So you don't need to worry about that. Squarespace badge, you don't need to worry about. And custom CSS, again, unless you're really familiar with CSS, I would say don't poke around in there. I copy all the CSS over to a document on my end just in case something goes awry. But generally speaking, that's, there's a lot of code in there, so you don't really need that either. Commerce, if we have a shop, this is where all of your orders and inventory will be, so you can see all of the product that you have, how much product you have left. You can set up discounts in here, so if you wanted to add a discount for a certain amount of time or for a certain product, you could do that here. You can decide if it's a percentage off or free shipping. There's lots of different discount types that you can use, and depending on your plan, you can access certain premium things. Okay. Again, most of the stuff, if you have a shop, you're probably going to be familiar with most of this. The product status, the wait list, that sort of thing. Customer notifications are the emails that people receive. So you can style all the emails generally this through the global email styles, and this is the same as like the styles settings. But then you can also, make changes to the emails themselves. So for example, if you click into business settings, you can change your from address, your apply to address, some of the more legal and important assets of your identity within your customer notifications as well. All right. And then, of course, one of the most important things is your payments. So you've likely set this up, and we've set this up together. But if you only connected Stripe the first time around, you could obviously come in here and connect PayPal or Square if you're doing sort of an in-person point of sale. That's all under commerce. Next up is marketing. Marketing has several things that are helpful. So if you wanted to set up email campaigns through Squarespace versus MailChimp or Flowdesk or something else, you can pop in here and do that. This is a whole separate area. But if you are set up to do that or want to merge everything over, this is where that is. So you can see you have the same things you'll have in the other platforms, your drafts, automations, and then this is where you access your mailing lists, assuming you have them. So you could add to this and create different mailing lists for different targeted marketing, whatever you need to do. And that's all in here under email campaigns. This mostly when we're dealing with SEO, it's in the page descriptions and tagging and things like that. But there is a little bit more to it. So if we clicked into this, it mostly gives you resources. So like the SEO checklist, which sends you out to a Squarespace article. You can click into here, and this really just takes you to your analytics, so you can see what your keywords are if you have Google Search Console connected for Google Analytics. So that's really what that is. So it's not the most helpful on top of anything else we already have done. Promotional pop-up is helpful if you want to have an email sign up, something like this. Again, we've probably already set this up together. So if you're just editing and making changes, you can come in here and edit the content, for example, the headline or the body. You can also edit the styling again, but I've set all that up for you. And then the action. So for example, if we have it set up so that people are joining the newsletter, you could also change it if you wanted to do something else and link it to a certain page or a product sale or something like that. That's all within these promotional pop-up action areas. And then just make sure that it's displaying if you want it to. Okay. All right. The announcement bar is the other thing I like to point out in marketing. So if we enable the announcement bar, what it does is it pops up at the top. And of course, it says this is an announcement here. You can change this. This is something that maybe if you have a call to action that's sort of temporary. So if you're running a sale or you are holding an event and it's sort of a temporary but important call to action, that might be a good example of having an announcement bar. The other one might be if you wanted to share something like you're going on vacation or maternity leave or you're just out of office or something like that people might need to know. Or maybe you have a COVID policy or something like that that's kind of a new thing. You could put that up in the announcement bar. And then when you're done with it, you can disable it. The other thing that I want to point out is just that you can just in any way, sort of the same as any other text, you can bold it. You can link the word announcement, for example, and we'll come back to links. But you can do a handful of things in here with the text of this announcement bar. We're going to disable this one. A lot of people are doing Facebook Pixel now. So if you have a Facebook Pixel ID, you can add it here. And, if you have like a Pinterest button or something like that, you can also update that here. So if you want to have Pinterest buttons on your blog, you can enable it for the blog pages. You can decide what it looks like, and you can do that within here. Okay. Scheduling, I'm not going to go over this too much. This is like Acuity or something similar to that. Calendly does scheduling. So Squarespace has its own scheduling now. So this is similar to the email campaigns where if you want to purchase this scheduling option, you can do that within here, and you can set it up so that people can schedule appointments with you directly within Squarespace. So it's kind of a secondary offering that they have. Analytics, I always just tell people to pop in here, Check out your traffic. Where is it coming from? We talked about the search keywords. If you connect this to Google AdWords or Google Search Console, you can do that and get a lot of really robust data here. But even if you don't do that, Squarespace has some good info that you can check out, like the popular content, so what people are looking at, where what people are searching on the site, all kinds of good stuff. So you can kind of get in here and get some good intel, which is helpful. Profiles is relatively new. If you have customers or subscribers or something, you can see their information all in here. It's just Squarespace is just trying to make it kind of an all-in-one place sort of thing. So you can get in here and kind of get the info you need for that. And then finally, for settings, this is where, of course, your billing and account information is. If you need to grab an invoice, you can do that here. If you want to change your billing or your plan, you want to upgrade, you can do that there. And then let's see what else. Domains, of course, is here. This is obviously going to be connected, to your domain, whatever we want that to be. But if you wanted to add a domain, you could do that. So let's say for this site, for example, hollymartin.com is the main domain. But if she wanted to add hollymartincoaching.com, she could get a domain here and add that as well. So that's where that is. Same with email. If we've set up GSuite for you, all that info will be in here. And let's see what else. Social links. You don't have to put your social links in here, but this is one place where they'll be. But you can also just add them on page. It's just helpful to know that these are here and the difference between social links and connected accounts. So social links are literally just links. Connected accounts is if you have an Instagram account or something like that you want to pull the data in from. So that requires you to input your username and password. And again, this will all be set up for you if we've done this together. But just in case you're adding something, that's where that is. So if we didn't set up your Instagram grid at the bottom of the footer and you really want to do that, that's where you would come to do that. If you need to change your site back to password protected, you can do that here. And I think those are really the main ones that you'll need for this. Permissions maybe would be the last one. If you're inviting anybody to be an admin or a blog contributor or something like that, you can add and invite contributors. You can add their name and email and then decide what you want them to have access to. So if you only want them to access, if it's your accountant and your bookkeeper and they only get access to your billing, you can do that. If you have an assistant, helping with scheduling, whatever it is, you can set up your permissions there. All right, back to pages. So under pages, there's a couple things that I really like to point out. First of all is how the hierarchy and sort of categories are set up for where the pages exist on the site. So the primary navigation, and this depends a little bit on the layout of each site, the primary navigation is going to include, for this particular site, it includes these pages, and then the secondary navigation includes this, which just has a slight styling difference. So depending on how we set up your site, we may not have any secondary navigation. It just depends. But that's once you kind of see where each part is, you'll understand how we set it up based on the styling of the site. So we have primary and secondary, and those are always up here in the header area. We have footer navigation, which there's nothing in here, but if there was footer navigation, obviously that would be in the footer. So anything added here would remain in the footer. And then not linked are any pages that are, exist but aren't actually in the header area. So for example, the home page on this site certainly exists, but it doesn't, we don't have a home tab up here because it's under not linked. Okay. So that's the main thing. The secondary thing that I like to point out are the different types of pages themselves. So this little icon means it's an index page. This one means it's a link, meaning that there's no page at all. It just links out to a separate site. This page is just a regular sort of standalone page, and I'm going to go over the standalone page versus the index page in just a minute. And then the little A next to it means it's a blog page or sort of like a journal. So we'll go over that as well. But the difference between an index page and a regular page, since I'm on the home page, I'll show you this. Basically, an index page has each page under the index page sort of operates like a section of the page. So you can see we have the banner section here, the intro section right here. So the only reason this matters is because if you're going to go in and edit this, and you start to edit this section, and you're editing the text, and then you're like, oh, I actually, I want to edit this photo down here. Well, you just have to save it, and then pop down here to the gallery area and edit that photo there. So you'd have to go down to this tagline gallery or up to the banner to add anything there. So each part is its own separate section, basically. And the reason we set it up that way is because it allows us to do a lot of fun banner backgrounds and things like that throughout the sections and throughout the page. Some of the basic things that will be the case for every site are the way you edit the pages and the sections. So one of the ways to do that is to click edit and it will open up. The other way to do that would be to just double click into the part that you want to edit. So in that particular case, it's code. If I want to edit this summary block of images, I can click edit in that now. And you can edit directly on the page. The other thing I want to point out is if you're adding new content blocks to any page or blog posts, and we'll circle back to blog posts too, but if you're adding it, you'll see that these little line guys will pop up in different sections of the page or different parts of the section. So that shows you where, if you were going to add a new content block, a new image or video or text box, that's where this would go. So let's say I wanted to add a text box below here. I would click that. And now this opens up all of my content block options, and you can see there's a ton. For the most part, you'll probably be sticking with the basic ones up here. So again, let's say we wanted to add text. I would drop in that block there, and now I can add all my text here. I can center it, I can italicize it, right? I can do most sort of basic text editing within this. Here's where you can change your different headings. Heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, right? And you'll have these set up within your site. You could also bullet something. And then if you're having trouble with formatting, I always share with people that they can clear the formatting with that little button there. Okay? In case you've copied it over from Word or something like that. So now that I have my text box here, maybe I want to drop an image next to it. So there's a couple ways to do that. One of the things that I like to do is actually drag and drop it. So you can see as I'm moving this around, it shows me again where it's going to go. So what I want to do is I want to get it so that it's right next to this text box, and that's it. So I have to wait until this little line is just right there, that teeny little line next to my text box, and now I can drop it in. And then of course you can upload your image, grab whatever that is, hit apply, and now you have an image there. And now I have my text next to it. So let's say I have lots of text, right? But this feels too big. Now you can kind of adjust this as well. So those are just a couple of basic kind of layout tools that you can use. The last one I like to share is that if you are trying to make this not quite so wide, you can add a spacer block and do the same thing where you kind of make sure that that line is just going right next to the image. It's not going all the way up because that will move everything on this page over to the right. So we want to make sure that it's only to the left of this image block, and I can drop that in, and I can do the same thing and drag this over here and drop it in. And now it looks much smaller. I can still adjust this, right? So maybe that's where I want it to be, or I can adjust the spacers to move over. So you can do lots of adjusting here. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this because we don't need that. But that's generally how you'll add in some content blocks if you're updating a page. So I'm going to pop into the blog and just show you a few things on this blog, on any blog. Assuming that you are adding a new blog, you can click the plus button at any time to add a completely new post. I apologize for the blinking background. What you can do is, of course, then add your title. And the most important thing I like to point out are the tags and categories. So you can add tags here or categories here, and you can just select any of the ones that you have. So you can select more than one, whatever that looks like. You can also decide if you want it to be scheduled for the future. So I could schedule this for, the 23rd of October or whatever day you need. Or you can, and then once I click out of this, or I could make it published, or I could make it a draft. So you can make it so it's not anything. And then you can click save or save and publish. If you click save and publish, it will go ahead and publish. It won't be a draft anymore. So just keep that in mind. The other important notes here are that if you want to add a thumbnail image, this is what's going to pull into the blog summary that we've set up. So you'll want to add your thumbnail image here. And then if you have an excerpt that's pulling onto that blog page as well, you'll want to make sure you add that here as well. Okay, those are kind of the main things. If you have multiple authors, you can change to whoever the author is. But that's only important if we have that selected because you want that featured. Most of the time, people aren't featuring who's writing the posts. Okay, there's a couple other things you can poke around in here if you need to add your location, which I've never done. You can automatically share it to Facebook or something like that as well. But you can poke around there. The most important things are thumbnail, image, excerpt, and then just adding that post with categories. I'm gonna discard this. Whew, sorry. Now that is blinky and crazy. That's sort of way number one to create a blog post. Way number two would be to edit a current blog post and duplicate it. So now I can duplicate this post and it will look exactly the same as, I'm just going to click save, as my post number one. So I can edit it in the editor by clicking here, or I can edit it on the page once it comes up by clicking, I can edit it on the page by clicking directly into the page itself. I think this is helpful for editing the blog post because you can see what it actually looks like versus in the editor where those headings and style details don't always come through. In fact, they don't come through at all. So it's kind of helpful to see it on the page itself. Plus you edit and add content in the exact same way on a blog page as you would on a regular page. Okay. All right, so I want to go over links real quick, and links will look exactly the same no matter if you're linking text or an image or a button. Links will always look like this. So they'll pop up here. You'll have the little option for clicking the gear, which is your settings. And when you do that, you have a couple of different options in this editor area. So one is to click into an internal page like this. So you can scroll through. We'll click the home page here. We'll make sure it's the index and not just kind of the page section. So the index of the home page. You can also add an outside link, so junemango.com. Make sure you open in a new window or tab for that. You can do an email where they're emailing you directly. You can add a subject. You can even add body, copy. Maybe the email would be something like, I want to join or something like that. And so that's the subject that you could link it to. Of course, you could link your phone number, pretty straightforward. Or you can add a file. So if you have a PDF that you want people to download, a freebie or something like that, you can upload the file here. Let's say that I am uploading this. Once it uploads, you need to make sure that you click it again so that it's checked. And then you can click save. So uploading it is not enough. You have to click it and then there'll appear a little check mark there showing you that you have in fact linked it. Okay, so that's important. But that is the link for, and then click apply. But that's the link for buttons. See here, that's the link for text. It's all the same, which is helpful because it makes it nice and easy to remember. All right. The last thing I want to go over is adding a form. So editing or adding a form, for the most part, forms are usually in the contact area, right? So with this form and with most forms, the default is name, email, subject, message. You can delete any of these, or you can add more form fields. There are a million. So let's say we want to add the date. Maybe you're scheduling something with somebody. You can decide if it's required or not, and then you can click apply. Okay, and then the storage area to make sure that it's sending it to the right place. So, you'd make sure that it's sending to your email address or connecting to your MailChimp account, etc. And then if you wanted to change like the button label, you can do that here as well. That's pretty much it on forms. There's a couple things you can do. If you make it lightbox mode, for example, it just makes it a button, which is kind of cool, but most of the time you'll probably keep it as a form. Okay, no storage, that's okay, don't need it. And I think that leaves us in a good spot. Hopefully this tutorial covered all of the Squarespace basics that apply to any site, including yours. Of course, you will also be able to view your custom tutorial that has specific details for your specific site. But this should get you into a place where you can edit some of those basic Squarespace things and make it a little bit easier for you. So again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, happy editing.